RFK Jr. has lost at the United States Supreme Court on a major health issue, and he hasn't even been confirmed as the Director of Health and Human Services yet. An inauspicious debut. I'll tell you more about the crazy talk that RFK Jr. made to the Supreme Court and why it was so rapidly rejected on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. You're here, hit the free subscribe button, and I'm Michael Popok at the intersection. RFK Jr., environmental lawyer, not a scientist, not a man of medicine at all, decided to take a case in order to try to stop medical associations in various states, like in Washington, the state of Washington, from investigating and potentially pulling the licenses of medical professionals like doctors who spread lies, who trade in medical hoaxes, who tell people that vaccines don't work when they do, or spread other lies under the guise that they're just exercising their First Amendment right. No, you don't have a First Amendment right when you're a healthcare professional to lie to your patients about what their diseases are, their diagnosis, or their treatment. You don't get a cover for that under the First Amendment right. You know, like an airplane pilot doesn't have a First Amendment right to crash the plane with everybody on board because he's just expressing himself. And so RFK Jr., who's a lawyer, decides he's going to be co-counsel and file an appeal of the Washington Medical Board and them trying to stop and suspend the licenses of medical professionals that subscribe to RFK Jr.'s crazy, wacky, anti-vaccine, anti-science positions. Because we don't want doctors out there spreading lies. We don't want them to be like Donald Trump back when COVID was out. Let's just use light and Lysol to kill COVID. Why can't you ingest it? You remember those days? So now we got to see RFK Jr. in something he's supposed to be good at, which is being a lawyer going down in flames. Here's how it worked. He takes he goes to trial court in federal court in Washington to try to stop the medical boards from investigating these doctors and ultimately suspending their licenses. The trial court judge in Washington federal court says, no, I'm not doing that. You don't have a First Amendment right to lie and hurt people. Quite the opposite when you're a medical professional. They don't like that. They took it up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which sits in California. And the Ninth Circuit says that the trial court judge was right, that this is an appropriate investigation by a medical board and that somebody can be suspended for doing what these people are charged with. Well, RFK Jr. didn't like that. So he brings a phony second appeal, makes an application for an emergency appeal. It's an emergency appeal directly to the United States Supreme Court from the Ninth Circuit ruling on behalf of Children's Health Defense. That's some made-up thing that he is also the founder of. The first stop on the train is Justice Kagan, because each of the circuits, there's 11 circuits plus the federal circuit and that's involved. Each of the appellate circuits has a justice of the Supreme Court over them for administrative and first review period and for emergencies. And so all the blue states basically have Ketanji Brown Jackson, Kagan, or Sotomayor sitting over them, and the rest of the red states are some combination of Alito, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Roberts, and Amy Coney Barrett. If I said Amy Coney Barrett before, I meant Ketanji Brown Jackson. Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sotomayor, and Kagan sit over blue, and the rest sit over red. So Washington State, Washington, Oregon, California, all blue, goes to Kagan. Now, she has two choices. She can either make the decision on her own without any further briefing. It's not even a shadow docket. It's just like a rejection. Boom. Or she can refer it over to the full court, who can decide whether they're going to take this emergency appeal. Now, the way emergency appeals are, this is before you apply for an appeal through a normal process, which is called a writ of certiorari. If you file a writ of certiorari, you're asking for a full briefing before the full panel of the 9, with all the briefs and oral argument and everything else. Very few cases end up getting granted a writ of certiorari. Out of the thousands and thousands that are filed every year and decided every year, only about 50 to 60 to 70 or so end up at the United States Supreme Court. So you see how few get up there. The other way to get up to the Supreme Court is in advance of a writ of certiorari on an emergency application. You try to say, we will one day hopefully have a writ of certiorari, but for now we have an emergency issue that only you can solve. Please stop. And what they wanted, what RFK Jr. wanted, was for the Supreme Court to rule in his favor and to enjoin, to stop the medical boards and forced the trial judge to issue an injunction to enjoin the medical boards from further investigating his clients who were spreading misinformation and lies. Kagan got it first. Kagan said the other side was the medical boards, and they were like, we want to file briefs. And Kagan, I'm giving you my artist rendering. Kagan had a version of, I got this. She didn't even ask for it. Had so little merit, this emergency appeal. She didn't even ask for the other side, the medical boards, to file anything at all. She only had their brief, and she rejected it. She denied it. And that's it. It dies there. It dies there. You don't get a motion for reconsideration, or you don't get to the full panel. Now, in it, they asked, knowing that Kagan was going to be the first stop on their train, they asked for the entire 9 to rule on it, but that's up to Kagan. That's the prerogative that's given to the justice that sits over a circuit. And she said, no, thank you. And she denied it, which means they're dead. Now, if they want to take a normal appeal and file a writ of certiorari and ask again in the future, they can try. They can try to do that. But the chances of that happening are none. I mean, it's only the vote of Kagan. The others didn't really get to vote. I know it's reported as Supreme Court rules against RFK Jr. I mean, they did. Justice Kagan certainly did. And in order to get a writ of certiorari granted in the future, you need 4 of the 9 to be interested. And in order to win on your issue, you got to have 5 votes. So we'll watch to see if the possibly incoming, God help us all, Department of Health and Human Services, responsible for 30% of the federal budget and 30% of the GDP of this country, along with Dr. Oz, is going to take another shot at this. But you can see where his head's at. He's cracked. You know, if he doesn't go down in flames when they go through a normal Senate confirmation process where he's asked hard questions about vaccines and the worm in his brain that he's admitted to and things like that, he'll have to answer hard questions about the sex assault charges against him and the infidelity in his marriage and why he should be trusted with the Department of Health and Human Services. We'll follow it all right here on Legal AF and on the Midas Touch Network. Take a moment, hit the free subscribe button. And then you'll know when we're posting things on a regular basis on this channel. I sit at that intersection of law and politics. I don't blow smoke or sunshine. You've reached Michael Popok at the intersection, and I look forward to you being here for our next hot take, our next podcast, everything related to Legal AF. So until my next reporting, I am Michael Popok, and I am on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.